Good afternoon, everybody. It is an honor to be here, to be invited to speak at this visionOS event. Thank you very much to Satoshi-san and Yuki-san and the sponsors for inviting me here today. So, my name is Oliver. I am the Director of Design and Innovation at a user experience consultancy called Contxtual in Sydney, Australia. So what I want to look at is a bit about how things are to create great user experiences today. So first of all, just a bit about us. We have been looking at spatial computing and mixed reality for about 8 years now. And we've been exploring what makes a good experience and what makes a not so good experience. And we have done a lot of prototyping of different ideas on different headsets, such as the Magic Leap 2, such as the HoloLens, Oculus, Quest, etc. But of course, at the start of 2024, the Apple Vision Pro launched, and this was a great device for us. We thought it was a really good opportunity to explore how we can create really interesting and different user experiences for this device. So for the launch day of Apple Vision Pro, we wanted to make sure that we had an application in the App Store ready to go. So we wanted to do a couple of particular things for this application, and we are a UX consultancy, so we are not a development company. So it needed to be small. It needed to be volumetric. We wanted to make something that could live in the spatial computing world, not just another 2D interface. And we wanted it to be beautiful because we believe that things in our workspace or in our home space should be beautiful and nice to look at. So we did these things and we wanted to have it ready quickly. So we looked at what sort of problems we could try to solve for people. And when we knew about the Vision Pro and we used it at the Singapore Vision Pro lab and so on, we saw that the calendar experience was just the iPad calendar experience. And it was a big screen that took up a lot of the field of view for people. And maybe it wasn't a great design for visionOS. So we went through a process of doing some sketching, doing some whiteboarding, and looking at how might we design something that is a better view of a person's day in visionOS. And so we created an application called Day Ahead. And Day Ahead is a glass tube. It has a clock at one end. It has a ring that shows you where you are in your day. And it has the little blue bubbles or colored bubbles to show you your meetings. I'll show you a video.
Now, Fantastical isn't the only calendar app I use on Vision Pro. There's an app called Day Ahead that I've been using. And Day Ahead is a really interesting app. Instead of having like a window like you would traditionally do for an app, this just has a 3D tube. And inside it are your calendar events. So you can see your events and when they will be happening. You can see where you currently are and how far along your events are. You can then look and select an event and it'll show you all the details for it. This is a really clever app. I absolutely love playing with this. For a digital 3D environment, I think this is a really clever way of showing calendar events. It's a simple looking app, I'll totally admit to that, but I think a lot of really good native visionOS apps aren't trying to be these big complex UIs that you would see on something like the Mac. They're just simple utilities that you can just interact with, they do a particular thing, and then you can move on.
So that was our first application, and then we took those parts and we made a battery monitor, but now we did that to show our clients what you could do quickly and in a new way, a different type of way. So now we work for our clients globally on different visionOS applications. What I want to talk to you about today is how can you create the best apps for visionOS? And there are two ways that I think about this. I think about what are the things that visionOS and the Apple Vision Pro do best? And then how do we use those things to make sure that it's a great experience for the person using the Vision Pro? So the talk today, I'll cover 5 areas. The first one is really making sure that when people first experience your application, that it's a smooth process and it's easy for them. The second point is about how do we overlay digital content onto the physical world, and how can we really make that a strength of spatial computing. The third aspect is around that interaction, so using eye gaze, using gestures, but also new ways of doing these interactions, and some of them were highlighted in earlier talks. And that fourth one there is how do we create things that are beautiful so that we can enjoy these things and be happy that they're in our Vision Pro and in our spatial computing experience. And the last one is, what's the little bit of magic that makes this even better, that people want to have this there and go back to it all the time? So, to onboard people into your application comfortably, Apple provide a lot of really good UI patterns, user experience patterns, UI patterns that you can leverage so that people don't have to rethink it all the time. And that for the user, that makes it very familiar because it might look like other applications that they've used before. And it makes it easier for them to navigate because their UI controls the button types and things like that they are familiar with and can go through. So when we created our application, we designed the 2D screens first, and Apple recommend that you have some 2D screens to transition that person from their 2D experience into the 3D experience. And I'll give you some examples of that. So in our application, we do a bit of a welcome screen first, and we explain a bit about the application and what you need to do to get ready to have that 3D experience. But then we pass you through to that 3D glass tube. So we don't need to put both those things together, we can separate them. And then there are a lot of other examples, things like the All-a-Core application that you might have seen, which again uses a 2D screen to get you familiar and to guide you through the content, to find the content that might be the right piece for you. But then they drop you into that more immersive experience. Okay, so it's a stepping stone to get there, to the right place and the content. There's another application called Paradise. So spatial delivery first. So this is one where we want to have a look at things to design a store. And so what they do is you guide you through the gestures, then you see the 2D screen, and you grab that 3D element and you drop it onto the floor, and then the world comes around you. Again, this 2D screen to guide you into the 3D experience. And then the app that was talked about before by Toyota-san, Paradise. Okay? Again, the onboarding is really nice, beautiful screens. You have these really rich designs, beautiful designs. And then what I like about this is they've actually almost got an extra step where they bring up the garage, and it's like a car garage. And so the door lifts up, you get this beautiful animation, and then you need to go in and pull the car out into your world. So you're taking it from this 2D into the 3D world, and then you can move things around, move the window around where you want it to be comfortable, and then you can double tap it and it will go full size. We'll come back to Paradise later. I've got another example of it. But what Apple provide to make your life a lot easier is things like Figma templates and Sketch templates, so you don't have to think, you don't have to redesign new button styles or ways to get here or there. You can leverage those, and they're given all to you so you can take those pieces and put them together in the way that makes sense for you. The second aspect that I want to talk about today is that way that we overlay the digital content on the physical world. And one of the key strengths that I think sometimes we forget about is the Apple Vision Pro is the best device for video pass-through. It lets us have the clearest view of reality of any of the video pass-through devices, especially compared to the Oculus Quest. I recently got the Samsung Galaxy XR, and I believe that the Vision Pro is better than that as well. So it's a great device, so we should take advantage of that to create great spatial computing experiences and to really allow the customer to have this great digital content in their world. Now, of course, Apple will allow you to do this through the operating system with things like widgets. Okay? Widgets are digital content that I can stick on my wall or put on a table or wherever I might want to put it. Okay? So that's a great start. But then there are other companies doing very interesting things in this space as well. This one just came out or was put on the internet the other day from Southwest Airlines in America.
We have these great training spaces that are used to prepare our cohorts for the world they'll be working in. With mixed reality, we can utilize these high-fidelity environments in a whole new way. We simply grab an item from the library and place them into the scene.
If you're testing a new experience for customers or employees, you likely aren't just testing one idea, you probably have several. In some cases, you may have to bring people back over multiple days depending on the complexity of the experience. With scenes, you can instantly just reset the entire space.
And the level of detail that you experience with these items is unlike anything that you've seen. You'll find yourself stepping around objects that don't exist in the real world.
But we wanted to dive deeper. We wanted to bring objects to life in a way that enriched that experience. Every object is nothing more than a collection of surfaces. What if we could dynamically control those surfaces and give a narrator the ability to craft that story?
They're just images. They can be whatever you want them to be. It's like a giant storyboard. Just map the images to where you want them to be, advance the story, and create an immersive experience.
What I think is really great about this application is it isn't a consumer application, it's an application for us as designers. As spatial computing designers, we can create these experiences to prototype what the end result might be. Okay, so I really like that about that application. And then this one I showed before, spatial delivery. And again, it's this opportunity to prototype, to quickly make digital assets, but to put them into a physical world and to see how they will fit. How might we arrange them in the best way? What's the best layout? Where should we position the shelves? But also being able to overlay the data, the sales data or information about each of those objects is a great opportunity. And then finally, an Australian company called Jigspace, who are like a poster child for Apple Vision Pro. And this is them looking at using the Apple Vision Pro to place a building and to look at how construction might happen within a real environment.
The next step in this jig, pulled up the plans for this project. My builder can get an overview of the wider context. I'm seeing all of the documents I need in context of what I'm working on. Cool, let's keep going. Next, we can see the excavation we'll be making. After that, where we're putting in our pier foundations, our caps, the steel, and this is where we'll put in the strip foundations. We're going to look at this step in a bit more detail. For this step, we've added in the relevant docs our builder needs to put in the strip foundations. From the plans over here on the left to a video on laying our rebar for the footings on the right. Images, PDFs, videos, it all works in Jigspace. So our builders can dive all the way into the little details in context. Again, doing all of this with both hands free, no iPad, no iPhone, no A0 printouts. You can imagine how useful this is for training, step-by-step maintenance, or demonstrations. And really, this is the power of Jig, bringing all of your 3D and contextual information into one place when my builder needs it. Jumping through a few steps, goes through that construction process. You can see here, bringing in the frame, brickwork goes up, windows, roof coming on. There you have it, the final step. As you can imagine, this is just...
Okay. And then the third thing, enhancing the interaction. So we know that, again, the Apple Vision Pro is the best device for eye gaze and to using eye gaze for navigation. It's the best and fastest and most responsive device for gestures using your hands. We've got a new range of devices that we just heard about before that we'll talk about. And also spatial personas. The avatars that we have on Apple Vision Pro are the best on any of the headsets available. And what this means for the customer is that the interactions feel more natural. It is easier for people to start to use, and they feel more comfortable when they're using it. So as I mentioned, we've got eye gaze to navigate around the experience. We've got gestures. And of course, we've got voice as well. So we can use voice where it might be useful through multimodal design to really make these easier experiences, whether that's text input or engaging with an intelligent agent. And of course, Apple supply a standard set of gestures to interact with the system at the system level. But of course, we can use those in really interesting ways. Has anyone used Porta Nubi, the game? Has anyone seen this game? So this just won the Apple Design Award, I think, for games just this week, or one of the awards. So it's quite interesting in the way it does things. This is a new SDK from a company called Spectre XR, which instead of using gestures like the pinch and the ones that we just saw, the standard ones, we are now looking at physics-based gestures. So I can grab a ball, okay? I can use 10 fingers, not just 2, okay? And so it's quite a different interaction and allows us to interact with controls in a different way, to grasp objects, to stir things around, and so on. And there's one up here where you can, even push a ball around, okay? So different types of gestures, and they can enable new interactions. And then, of course, we've got the new devices that we talked about before. We've got things like the Muse Pen, the Sense controllers from the PlayStation, and these enable, again, a different range of interactions. So the pen, obviously, with applications like Touch Desk, enabling a surface to interact with the pen so that you get some resistance, but you can still move it around so it's comfortable. And all the capabilities of being able to erase, to add colors, and so on. So I think it's really interesting what the Muse Pen's going to add to experiences. But there's also different things that you can do with the Muse Pen. It's just an object, right? It's not necessarily a pen. So this is an application where it becomes a soldering iron to teach people how to solder a PCB, okay? So a very novel way of using the same device. One of the more interesting stories that I heard about that I didn't realize, but the Apple team spoke about it about 6 weeks ago, was when you do the Encounter Dinosaur experience, the dinosaur actually changes the way that it interacts with you and how far it comes out of the surface based on how much you engage with it. So the more you engage with it, the more it engages with you. But if you don't, then it doesn't. And I think that relationship between how people engage with the digital content and how it responds to them can be really powerful to give people the right amount of engagement that they're comfortable with these very rich interactive experiences. And of course, we've got spatial personas. These are the personas from the Android XR platform, and these are obviously the spatial personas on this side. And you can see the difference. The difference is significant in the quality. You feel like you're talking to somebody else, a real person, not just an animation. And of course, we can use these in a range of ways, depending on the content and how we want to interact with those other people with us. We have a get-together of a couple of us, and so that opportunity to collaborate and to work on a whiteboard together is a very different way of interacting with a computer, having this engaged collaboration with people that might be across the world or could be in the same room. And sharing these experiences, I think, is really interesting. I mentioned before, that number 4 is creating the beautiful things. Okay, we have this opportunity where things can be a volume in front of us and take on properties of materials like metal or like glass. And these assets are very high fidelity. They look great, very high resolution, and we get things like environmental lighting. So the lighting on the object matches the lighting from the room. And these things just make these objects more powerful, more realistic to us, and tricks our brain into thinking that they are real and that we can engage with them and that they're nice to have and to interact with. When we first created our application, we were playing around with different materials, and glass was the material that for us made the most sense. And so, it's hard to see here, but that gloss on the glass and the gloss on the ring, they're just nice objects to have in your environment. And then similarly, like we saw before, this immersive content, and we saw the talks about the immersive content, we can really highlight the beauty of these assets, whether it's immersive video, immersive photos, whatever it might be. And then objects as well, and the way that the light comes off the glass, or that we can pull these objects apart and look at the finer details of these things is very unique. And that's something that we can really leverage in creating these experiences. I mentioned Paradise before, and the level of detail in these models is phenomenal. You can get inside the car, you get a great sense of what it would be to own a car like this, to look at all the panels, the metal versus the vinyl or the leather or whatever the material might be. And even things like the glass and the reflection on the glass, you can see the ceiling lighting reflected into the glass and onto the panels. Okay, so really high fidelity, beautiful objects. The stitching in the seats and the way that the Aston Martin logo is embossed on that leather. And again, it makes it feel real. It makes it feel like this object is in the room with us. The final point is this little bit of magic. And, magic could be a range of things, but sometimes it's combining all of the things that we've talked about in a really unique way, in a way that people haven't experienced before. And it causes some delight for them, okay? And this uniqueness is really something that can draw people back into your application to use it time and time again and to engage with it and have fun with it. Hopefully people like our object and the thing that we've created and think that this is a better way to view their day of their calendar information rather than a big 2D screen. Hopefully it's nicer for them. And then there's little things, right? Little aspects that change the way that we interact with computing. Apple with the widgets, for example, with the poster widgets for visionOS, we've got a level of proximity. So when we're far away from the widget, it might show some information like that. But when we go closer to the widget, the information changes. So that proximity to the content changes our relationship with it and what it does. And that's really important. We can leverage that to do fun things or interesting things or create different types of experiences. Now, drawing on a 2D plane is really nice, like a whiteboard with freeform or crayon. But drawing in 3D is a very different experience. And drawing with metal in 3D is a really different experience. And again, it just makes it feel like something you've never done before and is quite interesting. Oh, I've got a video of it. So it's fun to be able to walk around this. It feels like a solid object. It feels like something exists in your world that you've just created out of thin air. And then you can go around and look at it in different ways. And then we've got these experiences where we combine multiple aspects. So it might be a data map of what we're looking at. This is the SailGP one. So we can see the races on the video screen. We can see the models of the races. We can pick our favourite team, of course the Australians in this one, for me. And then we can zoom in and we can look at the boats in a way that we want to see them. Not the cameraman, not anyone else, but the way that we want to see particular details and information, okay? And then also look at the data over on the side there. So we create, this experience couldn't happen on any other device, right? This is a very unique way of looking at things. And then Paradise again. You know, one of the things that he's added, that Peter has added, is this little bit of magic of being able to speak to it and asking it to change colours, right? So you can go, oh, it's a beautiful Aston Martin, I'm going to make it blue. Or I'm going to make it gold. Or the gold isn't very good. It's more yellow than gold, I think. But this is a different way of interacting again, something that we've not seen before. So, in summary, I've got this one. What we would like to do is onboard people comfortably. Okay, we want them to make sure that we can ease them into visionOS, into a 2D environment, then into a 3D environment for that richness. We want them to relate the digital content to the physical world and feel like it's part of it when that's appropriate. And we want to enhance the interactions that they can do, whether that's through gestures, with custom gestures, with devices like the Muse pen. How might we use this in a different and interesting way? And how might we use spatial personas and collaborate with our colleagues or our loved ones or our friends around the world? And then making these things beautiful, using the high-resolution screen, creating these beautiful objects that can live in our world, and then at the end just adding that little bit of magic to make it a unique experience. Thank you very much for your time.